Welcome back to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack how a single tournament back in 1971 completely shifted the entire paradigm of European football. We often talk about eras in sports, right? Those clear dividing lines where the old way of doing things is just suddenly rendered completely obsolete by a massive leap forward. Well, today, we're looking at exactly that kind of leap. The intense pressing, the fluid formations, and the high-octane attacking systems we see in the modern game, yeah, they all trace their direct lineage back to this exact moment in history. So, how did one season change football tactics forever? To answer that, we really have to look at the definitive rise of Johan Cruyff and Ajax. Because to truly understand how tactical history is made, you can't just look at a team lifting a trophy at the end of a season. You have to look at the exact moment a completely new philosophy proved it could dismantle the established unyielding giants of the game. You've got to find that breaking point. This era perfectly captures a dramatic passing of the torch. It was literally the ultimate scenario of the student surpassing the master. Imagine a rugged, battle-tested, established Celtic side suddenly coming face-to-face with the fluid brilliance of an Ajax team that was just ready to take Europe by storm. It was a clash of two fundamentally different ways of thinking about space, movement, and teamwork. Section 1. The Tactical Revolution. To truly grasp this shift, we first need to understand what Ajax actually brought to the pitch. Interestingly, Celtic's own Davy Hay later pinpointed this exact era as the dawn of total football. And that wasn't just some catchy label for the press. It was a dizzying, revolutionary system where defenders suddenly attacked, attackers relentlessly defended, and positional fluidity was anchored by world-class teamwork. It was a philosophy demanding supreme technical skill from every single player out there, all orchestrated by the generational genius of Johan Cruyff. Hay actually noted years later that while the entire Ajax squad was world-class, Cruyff was the exceptional outlier, truly one of the best players in the history of the sport. He was the vital cog that made this incredibly complex machine work. His vision, his turning, his ability to read space before anyone else could, it perfectly set the stage for the ultimate crucible of that 1970 to 1971 tournament. Section 2, Student Meets the Master. This quarterfinal matchup is where this brand new tactical revolution faced its ultimate test. Let's look at the two sides. On one hand, Celtic represented the established heavyweight era. They were the unyielding, battle-tested shield of European football, and they knew exactly how to win tough, gritty games. On the other hand, you had Ajax, representing a rising tide of innovation. They brought this unpredictable, interchanging style of play that, frankly, no one had figured out how to defend against yet. It was tradition going head-to-head with the future. Now, Ajax arrived at the quarterfinals carrying immense momentum. As you can see, they had comfortably dismantled their early opponents, highlighted by a ruthless 5-1 aggregate thrashing of the Swiss team Basel. They were scoring for fun, pulling defenses completely out of shape. And this dominant run put them on a direct collision course with Celtic, setting up a highly anticipated clash between two genuine footballing titans. Section 3. The Amsterdam Masterclass. Okay, before a single ball was even kicked on March 10th, 1971, the atmosphere was bordering on surreal. Indonesian separatists had actually threatened to kidnap Ajax players in the build-up. Crazy, right? Because of this terrifying threat, Celtic players were ironically placed under heavy police guard, confined to the Amsterdam Hilton, and couldn't even leave without permission. Add in some heavy, thawing snow that turned the pitch into a hazardous slip and slide, plus Celtic being forced into an unfamiliar yellow and green change strip, and you literally have the absolute recipe for chaos. The anticipation for this clash was so immense that Ajax actually abandoned their usual ground. They moved the match to the sprawling Olympic Stadium just to squeeze in 65,000 roaring fans. The stage was massively amplified for this showdown, with the Dutch supporters absolutely desperate to see if their local heroes could finally topple British royalty. The match itself started as a grueling tactical battle. Celtic defended resolutely in the first half, with David Hay strictly man-marking Cruyff. But right in the 62nd minute, the Ajax star finally broke the deadlock with a brilliant individual effort off a long, precise ball from Johan Michels. And from there, the roof simply caved in on Celtic. A controversial free kick led to Barry Hulshoff blasting the ball past the wall in the 70th minute. And then right at the death in the 90th minute, P. Kaiser landed a psychological dagger, scoring the third. It was a crushing sequence that left Celtic staring down a massive 3-0 deficit. Section 4. The Hampden Park Decider. Desperate to claw their way back into the tie, Celtic returned home 2 weeks later. And man, Glasgow responded with terrifying scale. An astonishing 83,684 fans packed into Hampden Park that night, creating an intimidating wall of noise despite Celtic announcing that 90,000 tickets had actually been sold. Braving that massive sea of Scottish support were 5,000 traveling Ajax fans who made the journey just to witness history. The tactical dynamic of this second leg is truly fascinating. Celtic fought valiantly, throwing everything forward and actually managing to score in the 28th minute through Jimmy Johnstone. But Ajax, who, by the way, were forced by Celtic's manager Jock Stein to play in an unfamiliar blue strip to mess with their rhythm, responded brilliantly. They tactically adjusted by completely flooding the midfield. This was revolutionary because it strangled Celtic's traditional wing play. Ajax gave them absolutely no space. Their fullbacks stepped up aggressively to close down the wingers, and they just suffocated Celtic's attacking threat for the rest of the game. So Celtic won the battle on the night 1-0, but Ajax decisively won the war, advancing 3-1 on aggregate. As the final whistle blew in Glasgow, an undeniable realization kind of swept through the stadium. An era was ending. Some of the Celtic team were seen as passing their physical peak at the highest European level. The established masters were fading, and Ajax had definitively arrived on the continent. Section 5. The Wembley Coronation. Ajax's momentum was now completely unstoppable. After besting Celtic, they went on to dispatch Atletico Madrid 3-1 on aggregate in the semifinals. This set up a massive grand finale at Wembley Stadium on June 2, 1971, against the Greek side Panathinaikos, who were actually making their first ever final appearance. The final presented a clash of two incredibly fascinating managers. On one side, you had Rinus Michels, the strict mastermind guiding Ajax's futuristic vision of total football. On the other, you had the legendary Ferenc Puskás leading Panathinaikos. Puskás, of course, was part of the legendary Hungarian golden team of the 1950s. It was just a beautiful contrast, deep footballing heritage lining up against cutting-edge tactical innovation. Over 83,000 fans packed into the echoing cathedral of Wembley Stadium. It wasn't just a typical European final. The stage was perfectly set for the coronation of a completely new footballing methodology. The entire world was watching to see if this Dutch experiment could finally claim the ultimate prize. And Ajax wasted absolutely no time asserting their dominance. They struck immediately in the 5th minute with a goal by Dick van Dijk. That early advantage allowed Ajax to essentially put a tactical stranglehold on the game for the next 80 minutes. They proved that total football wasn't just about relentless attacking, it was about ultimate, suffocating control of the ball and the space. They finally sealed their 2-0 victory late in the game, in the 87th minute when Ari Hahn's shot deflected off defender Anthemis Kopsis and found the back of the net. This victory at Wembley wasn't merely a trophy lift, it was the birth of a dynasty. Ajax would go on to win the European Cup for 3 consecutive years, cementing total football as the undisputed premier tactical system on the planet. They fundamentally changed the geometry of how the game was played, leaving a legacy that literally every major club in Europe scrambled to emulate. So, has any modern tactical shift in football ever matched the revolutionary birth of total football in 1971? Which leaves us with one final thought. When you look at today's game, with all its advanced data analytics, incredibly complex pressing traps, and fluid formations, has any tactical shift since ever truly matched the revolutionary explosion of Cruyff's Ajax? They didn't just beat the old guard, they forced the entire world to learn an entirely new footballing language. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.